All right. Good morning, everyone. We are here again on behalf of the New Mexico Kidney Foundation. We're going to restart our series of Living Donor webinar to support living donation here in the community. And I'm here today after a year, Patrick, no?
Yeah, a year. It's been a year.
All right. So we have here
Valerie Archuleta.
And we have here Patrick O'Brien. Yeah. Perhaps, for those who don't know a little bit about the foundation, the New Mexico Kidney Foundation is a nonprofit organization that main goal is to support education of kidney disease prevention in the community. And as part of our outreach in the community is also to prevent people from going on dialysis. But if you're on dialysis, we want you to be out of dialysis. And one of the ways to do that is receiving a kidney transplant. And kidney transplant, unfortunately, is not an easy task. It's not an easy endeavor, no? And finding a kidney can be challenging for many patients. And we thought in the foundation to organize a program where we can empower patients to learn what is living donation, what is a living kidney donor, and how we can help patients who are on dialysis or have an advanced kidney disease to get a living kidney donor. And that's the idea of the whole seminar. A little bit about kidney disease. Unfortunately, kidney disease is not uncommon. The CDC statistics show that 1 out of 7 people in the U.S. have kidney disease. And unfortunately, diabetes and kidney disease, they go together. They are well connected. And New Mexico, unfortunately, we have a lot of diabetes here in New Mexico. We have a lot of hypertension, and that goes hand in hand with kidney disease. Other thing that we are learning more about kidney disease also, there are a lot of social determinants of health. So what it means is people, for example, who live low income, people who have, for example, live in rural areas. So lack of access to proper nutrition or exercise activities. All these are social determinants of health that can increase the risk of kidney disease and potentially affect risk of kidney failure. And New Mexico, unfortunately, ranked very high in the country among all these things. And that's the reason we're here. We're here to promote education, to promote kidney disease prevention, and for those who have kidney failure, how we can get you a kidney transplant and get you out of dialysis and just have a more productive life and have a productive time with your family in your community. Perhaps now we can move, Patrick, the next.
Sure.
Here.
So in today's webinar, we get a chance to talk to a living donor. And so I had a kidney transplant 2.5 years ago. And I feel very blessed by it. It came from a living donor. And so today we get a chance to hear from a living donor. And so it'll help us who have looked for a kidney in the past or are looking for a kidney transplant now to understand what other people think when we share our story, when we share our need for a kidney transplant and the need for a living donor. And so we're really blessed to have Valerie with us today to give us that perspective. And we can just go ahead and start it off. And Valerie, if you don't mind sharing your story.
Well, it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
My story started off when I was 18. I was a senior in high school, and the blood bank came to our high school. And I thought, well, now I'm an adult. I'm going to be a responsible person. I'm going to go donate some blood. So I show up to the room where I donate blood, and they put me on the scale, and they say, oh, no, you can't donate. You have to weigh 110 pounds to donate blood. And at the time, I'm 5 foot, half an inch, and I weigh 105 pounds fully dressed, right? And I was just devastated because in high school, I played volleyball, basketball, softball, I ran cross country, and I constantly got teased about being so short. And this was the time when Randy Newman had a hit song called Short People. And the first line in the song is, short people have no reason to live, right? So yeah, I was just really feeling badly about myself. Somehow I managed to get through it. A few years later, I tried again because, of course, now I was over 110 pounds, but fat doesn't count. I got like partially through my donation and I passed out. So that was no good. So I'm still feeling badly about myself. I did sign up for the bone marrow list because I heard that Hispanics are really underrepresented on that list. So I signed up for that. A few decades later, I tried to give blood once again. You know, I thought, oh, I'm probably okay now. But I actually went into convulsions, and they told me, don't ever try this again. So blood giving is just completely out. So I'm still counting now on the bone marrow. So now we jump to the 2000s, and I found out that once you turn 60, they kick you off the bone marrow list. Too old to give bone marrow now. Wow. I'm too small to give blood. So I'm just really feeling bad about myself, right? Can't help anybody. So around the same time, I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasts. Yeah. It's called Freakonomics Radio. Okay. And actually episode 209, they're talking about Al Roach, who actually won a Nobel Prize in economics for his algorithm.
That's right.
That started a way to organize kidney
exchange.
Right.
From Stanford.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. So they're interviewing him, talked about how he won the Nobel Prize. And I was like, oh, that's great, but I'm probably too old. Yeah. But during the podcast, they actually interviewed Ned Brooks. And at the time, he was 65, right? And I was like, oh, wow, I can do this. And, you know, listening to him talk about his story and what made him decide to do it. And then he mentioned that doing this, he got thousands of dollars worth of health testing for free. And I was like, oh, I'm sold. I'm gonna do it. So after the podcast, I went to the National Kidney Registry. I signed up, I registered there, did my medical history, and then we started with all the testing. Blood draws, a lot of blood, but luckily it was small at a time, a little bit at a time.
You didn't pass out there.
I didn't pass out.
No
X-rays, and I got X-rayed, CT'd, MRI'd. In fact, even the afternoon before I was scheduled to donate my kidney, I got a call from the doctor's office, and he wanted me to go back for another MRI, which was fine. They're all their due diligence. So while I'm doing all this testing, you know, I'm sitting there and it's like, you know, pros and cons. Do you really want to do this? Why do you want to do this? Are you sure? And I started to be like real judgmental and, you know, conditional. And it's like, well, I only want my kidney to go to someone who's worthy and, you know, no conspiracy theorist, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then the more I thought about it, it's like, no, this is a gift I want to give. I want to put it out in the world. And I decided just to let God, you know, let go and let God take care of it. So luckily that was all before my psych eval, because they also did a psych eval. Right? And I told them, I'm fine. You know, it's, you know, I'm just going to put it out in the world and what happens, you know, because they do ask, you know, well, what happens if you donate it to somebody and they don't take care of it?
Right.
You know, and it's out of my hands.
Right. You cannot control it.
Right. And I can't take it with me. I only need one. So let's do this. You know, and even to the morning I was getting prepped for the operation, they asked, are you sure you want to do this? You know, you can turn back, you can say no. It's like, no, I made a commitment. We're doing this, you know.
It's amazing, your story. 40 years since you were a teenager, you know, to your mid-60s. Wow, it's amazing. And, you know, so when you were in the process of doing your workup, was there any moment that you felt, you know, maybe this is not a good thing for me? I shouldn't do this.
Not for me. I mean, I had family members and friends like, "Oh, you're crazy. Why are you doing this?" And you know, and you never know what's going to happen, right? You know, so you know, I could get in a car wreck today and just be dead. you know, and it's like, well, I have a chance to help somebody.
Okay.
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
You know, and poor thing, at the time I didn't know who was going to get it. And we finally met later, and I told her, it's like, you know, I don't have kids, so I hate to put this on you, but now you're my legacy. So do well, you know, do well.
How did the surgery go, and your recovery? How was in general your experience?
Okay, so unfortunately after my surgery, I had a little reaction to the anesthesia. So the next morning I was throwing up. And even, I mean, they gave me the little patch and they did all they could. So for me, I had a little reaction. And the next day I had to get x-rayed. My doctor wanted to make sure nothing had happened. And, you know, God love radiologists. But when you're in your bed and you're going down the hallways and in and out of elevators and getting x-rays, you know, it's not the most gentle thing. So it was a little painful, but nothing I couldn't handle. So because of that, I did spend a couple extra days in the hospital, but it was fine. It's like,
how long did it take you to recover to where you could go back to work or start to do normal activities?
Well, luckily I work at Sandia National Labs, and we have a very generous sick leave program. They're very understanding, and I actually took 6 weeks off. In reality, I could have gone back maybe after 4.
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
You felt that you were back on your feet after a few weeks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And now, I mean, I even forget I have done it. You know, sometimes I don't feel any adverse effects from it whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think, you know, Valerie, what you have done, it really has changed the course of life of a person. You know, because, you know, I usually share this with my patients and also with my medical students. You know, the mortality, which means the risk of dying when you're on dialysis, is huge. It's huge, you know, and we many times underestimate that. You know, can be as worse as having a bad lung cancer or a really bad colon cancer. You know, and out of 100 patients who have kidney failure and they have diabetes also as a cause of kidney failure, you know, half of them sometimes they will have, you know, they will have the risk of dying in the first 5 years of dialysis. So whereas when you get a transplant, especially from a living donor, you are gaining 25, 30 years more of life. You know, it's impressive. It's impressive, and you, Patrick, you're a kidney recipient. You know, so
yes.
How did you feel between your, you know, being on dialysis, you know, and the logistics of being on dialysis, and now you have a transplant? How has changed your life?
Oh gosh, it's a huge change. I was doing home hemodialysis, so we did it 5 days a week, and so my wife and I, we would set up, and then I would do the treatment for 4 hours. Then we'd have to tear it down and clean it up and stuff, and so it took a lot of time, as well as just being tired from doing it. So that was the main thing we did. Fortunately, we could have people come over and visit, people that, you know, didn't mind the sight of blood. I remember our grandson came in and looked at this tube coming off my arm with this red, you know, tube full of blood going back into the machine. And he said, "Grandpa, is that your blood?" You know? And then his sisters had no problem with it. I mean, it didn't really bother him either after, you know, he would come and visit. We would play video games and do all sorts of things. Our granddaughters would come in, and they wouldn't have any problem at all. And but it took a lot of time, and it made me tired. I used to ride my bicycle quite a bit, and during that time, I tried to go riding with my family. And I could ride just a couple miles, and I couldn't even keep up with them. I was just so tired. And now, since the transplant, I have so much more energy, but namely, just so much more time. And so I'm trying to fill that time with doing good things, you know, the things that are most important, you know, spending time with my family and our grandkids and doing things like this. And so, but it's a huge difference, more energy, way more time, and you just get to enjoy life better. It's really nice.
Thank you, thank you. And Valerie, looking back now, how many months been since or years since you donated?
Almost 2.5.
2.5 years.
Yes.
2.5 years. Looking back, in retrospective, what are your you have traveled pretty much the whole experience, maybe even 34 years from
Yeah.
Into the donation scheme. What is your suggestion? So somebody who is wanting to get a kidney, for example, and somebody who want to donate, but they don't know the process, they don't know, the risk, they don't know. What would be your advice to these potential living donors out there?
Just to get more information, I mentioned Ned Brooks earlier. He did a really good TED talk,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually claims in it that he and I believe people like me have a larger amygdala, and that makes people with a larger amygdala more likely to be generous. And I believe that it makes up for my short stature.
Oh, wow. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
I never heard that. That's actually good.
Yes. So,
Wow.
And in my family history, I had 2 cousins who became the first living sibling donors to survive in the state of New Mexico.
Wow.
So
it's embedded in your genes, huh?
Yeah. So knowing their story
Okay.
and just listening to other stories and understanding that it's not the end of the world. You only need 1 kidney.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, the National Kidney Register, they do have a program. They have insurance in case, and they have a voucher program that if you donate a kidney undirected, you can actually sign 5 people up that are in your immediate family, and if they ever need a kidney, they get preferential treatment.
That's very important.
Yes, it is. And also they guarantee that if I ever did need a kidney, that I would get priority also. Right. So just learning the facts and talking with people and seeing the difference that it makes in people's lives. People just don't think about this. If you don't know someone who's in need.
Mm-hmm. No, and if my memory doesn't serve me wrongly, we have at least almost like 3,700 patients on dialysis now in New Mexico, and from that group, about only 400 are in the transplant wait list. Now we have 2 major transplant centers here in New Mexico, so roughly 10% of the dialysis patients are on the waiting list, and only a fraction of them get transplanted every year. So there's a huge need of living donors. We did, I think, about 86 transplants or around 90 transplants in 2024 as a state, and then only about 10 or 15% of that number were living donors.
Oh, really?
So
wow.
There's a huge need, and I think a lot of has to do with the difficulty, how you ask for a donor.
Right.
So what's your experience, Patrick? What tips can you share to patients? Because the first question or the first statement I get when I tell the patient, I think we should get more involved into getting a living donor. And they said to me, but I won't take the kidney from anybody else, or I feel bad asking somebody a kidney, and those are valid concerns, So how do you navigate that?
I asked the same question when I went on the transplant list. I went and talked to a friend of mine who had received a transplant, and I said, Adam, how do I tell someone I need a kidney? I don't want to look them in the eye and say, you have 2, and you could give me 1 and it wouldn't hurt you. I didn't want to do that, but he encouraged me just to share my story, and if someone wants to donate, they will speak up. And so I learned how to share my story, keep it short, keep it sweet, and share that I've got this need. And lots of people that I shared it with would say, wow, that's really a hard problem, and a few would say, well, what can I do? And so I think of Valerie, and I think of Valerie's generous spirit and her not just willingness to donate, but her persistence, on trying.
Yeah.
And I think of my own donor. We were approved for transplant, and then COVID hit.
Wow.
And so she went through all of that testing, and they said we stopped doing living donor transplants during COVID. And so after COVID lifted, a couple of years later, she said she wanted to do it again and went through the test again. And so I asked her, I told her, well, I'm sorry, you got to do all of these tests again. And she said, Pat, I want to do this. It was, whether it's something longer in your brain or something, but there's something special about people that want to do this. And I think you get your story out, and maybe you tell it to 10 people, and one of those 10 is going to be someone like Valerie or my donor that says, well, what can I do to help? And so I think you just got to get your story out. And so you need to have a short and sweet version, maybe a minute of, I found out I had kidney disease when I was, 25. And then I've been on dialysis for 3.5 years because my kidneys failed. And now I need a kidney transplant. And I'm looking for a living donor because those outcomes are best. And have a nice short and sweet story like that. Share it with people. And even better yet, get your friends and family to help you share that story. And so have advocates out there. And like I said, you might share it with 10 different people, and you'll come across someone like Valerie, and they will say, I've been looking for an opportunity like this to help. And so I just encourage people to have a story, get their friends and family to help, share it with people. I would usually end my story with, well, could you help spread that word?
I see.
Rather than, can you give me a kidney?
So you don't ask directly.
No, you don't. You just share your story, right. And if someone wants to help, they will speak up.
That's right. That is right. This event is live. If you have any questions, there's a chat box there. You can just send your question. We have here Leonda from the University of Kidney Foundation, who's in the background reviewing the chats. And please bring it up any question you have, so we can discuss any of inquiries.
I'd like to get Valerie's view on what do you think potential donors are thinking when someone shares a need like this? Or what were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking I want to help, and even there was an incident when I was getting, I think, an x-ray, and I was in the waiting room, and a husband was there with his wife, and she needed a kidney. And, I said, well, once I get all the testing done, we'll see if we're a match, So it's just realizing that you do only need one kidney, that it's not really a big deal. It took a few weeks out of my life, and that was it.
I have changed somebody's life pathway.
Forever.
Yeah, forever,
yes.
forever.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. And the algorithm that can start a chain. Like I said during the podcast, Ned, his donation was undirected or non-directed, and he started a chain, I think, of 6 or 7 donations.
Wow.
That went. So the way it works is, if you need a kidney and none of your family members are compatible, then they just give the kidney to Unos, and then Unos will find you one. So then theirs can just start a chain down the line and keep it going from there.
And one of the important things also we have to keep in mind is going back again, the mortality risk. When we have kidney disease or kidney failure, again, the odds of surviving for a long time are low. And again, living kidney donation is going to change that landscape dramatically. And patients, the recipients, recover much faster. There are less complications because it's a scheduled surgery. So you know when you go to have a transplant. So you stop some medications. You make sure that the patient is healthier, and the kidney is actually kept on ice or in transport much less time compared to a deceased kidney. For example, if you have a kidney from a deceased donor that's coming from New York, that kidney is going to be on transport for several hours. And the longer you keep a kidney out of the donor's body, then there's a higher risk of delayed graft function. So living donation can change that. And I think in general, people recover much faster. And that is one of the important things that I want all of our audience, who are going through this difficult time of having kidney failure or kidney disease. Living donation is the way to go when possible, and share your story. Use social media. I have seen patients who have gotten a kidney through social media. I have patients who got a kidney by just putting a sign on their front lawn. They no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the power of knowledge. And as you said, there will be a lot of, maybe a few more volunteers out there, who just wanted to have an opportunity to donate. No.
Well, I think another thing you have to do as someone that needs a kidney, at least for me, was get over the reluctance to talk about yourself and share a need. When I was talking to my friend Adam, who had a transplant, I said, I don't really want to go and tell people I've got this need. I don't want to be talking about myself. And he encouraged me to get over that and just share, because there are genuinely people out there that want to help. And there's plenty of people. I had a very good friend, one of my best friends growing up, and he knew about this need, and he called me later and he said, Pat, I really wanted to help, but I just didn't want to go into surgery. Mm-hmm. And I said, Don, you don't have to worry about that. We're still really good friends. And it's not something for everybody, but he felt really bad about that. And but it was good. It's probably a good thing for him to go through and think about. And I'm glad he came and talked to me, because I don't want my friend feeling bad. And so yeah, it's just getting over that reluctance to talk about yourself is a good thing. I had a coach with the National Kidney Registry, and she said, you need to post it on Facebook at least 7 or 8 times. And I go, I don't like posting anything on Facebook. and she said, you just got to keep doing it and keep pushing it, because after a while, other posts from other people come up and people don't think about it. But she got her kidney through posting on Facebook or some other, I don't know if she's using Instagram, but I think mostly Facebook. And so she really encouraged me to get over, not feeling like talking about yourself and your problems. And you don't have to go on and on and on about your problem. Keep it short, keep it down to like a minute, and just say, I've got this problem. I can't live without a kidney. I'm on dialysis. It takes all this time and all this energy. I'm never feeling good. So I've got this need. If you could help me share it, great. And just keep it short like that, and ask friends to spread it. And it's just amazing. You'll come across people that say, I want to help.
Leonda?
I do have a question. It says, hello, does a living donor have to be from the same state like New Mexico?
Okay, maybe I'll let Valerie first, and then I'll answer.
No, not at all. I was just fortunate, and everybody was surprised that I actually made a match with somebody in the state who actually needed one. But I think that's the rarity.
That's right. So no, to answer the question is you do not. You do not. There is a system called a kidney per exchange program, and the largest organization is a nonprofit called NKR, National Kidney Registry. And the two transplant centers in New Mexico, Presbyterian and UNM, they are affiliated with NKR. So essentially, what happened is when somebody gets into the active patient list from either centers, and they identify a living donor. The living donor can be in New York, can be in Oregon, can be in any state in the U.S., and the surgery can happen elsewhere, and the kidney gets transported to New Mexico, and vice versa.
I had a friend who was on he lives in Wisconsin. He was on vacation down in Louisiana, and he met a man that needed a kidney. And my friend Mark said, "I can help." You know, he was one of those people. But he said, "I live in Wisconsin," and the guy told him, "Well, just go and get tested." So we went up there and got tested, and he was healthy enough to donate a kidney, but wasn't a match. And at first, Mark really wanted to give his kidney to his friend. I think his friend was Hal, and Hal really wanted Mark's kidney, but they kind of got over that, and it turned out Mark's kidney went to someone in New York, I think, and then I think Hal either got a voucher or they were on the paired exchange program, and Hal got a kidney from San Diego, California. And so you don't have to be in the same state, and it's amazing what they can do. And I think it promotes better matches too, because they find the best match for the donor's kidney, and then you as the recipient get a really good match from someone else, but it might be out of state, might be in state, but kidneys can fly across the country. It's pretty amazing.
And that's a very good point that you just mentioned, Pat, matching. So there are two types of matching. One is the blood type, and the other type is HLA matching, or the tissue type matching. And the kidneys last longer if you are a better match, a tissue typing match kidney. So yes, this National Kidney Registry program allows the incompatible pair to find a better matching elsewhere. That ultimately will translate in longer survival for the kidney and the recipient as well. So perhaps we can go through some of the myths and facts about kidney donation.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. There are a number of myths out there, and I've had people come up to me and say, "Well, I can't donate because I'm too old." Something Valerie was thinking, or what if we're not the right blood type, and stuff. And so there's a lot of myths out there, and maybe we can go over some of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have here one. One that says living kidney donors won't live a healthy life with just one kidney. As Valerie earlier pointed out, we need only one kidney to have a good life. And in general, living kidney donors are screened very thoroughly, and modern medicine has different tools that we can identify risks, in donors in the long term. And out of 8 to 10 donors who come to a center, only 1 or 2 gets approved, because we always find something that potentially can impact in a negative way to a living donor. So the answer to that question is no. So as a matter of fact, kidney donors, they live longer compared to the general population who never donated.
Wow.
But if you compare with the very healthy living donors, like the kidney donors, they tend to match in pretty much.
Yeah, and I get to mention that both Pat and myself are
Yeah.
going to the Transplant Games of America
Yeah.
in Denver, which is held every 2 years.
Mhm.
And I believe it was started by some really elite athletes to show that even after a donation, you can still perform like anyone else.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I have another one here. Let me see here. Living kidney donors are more likely to get kidney disease after donating. That's, it's an interesting question. So first of all, donors are counseled about living donation thoroughly during their workup. They tend to lose about 30% of the kidney function. That's a fact. So the remaining kidney will overwork, will take kind of the speed from the remaining that the kidney was lost. So 30% is lost, but that can be overcome by if a donor continues to have healthy lifestyle, don't develop diabetes, or if he has blood pressure, control the blood pressure. So by adopting a healthy lifestyle, that risk can be minimized. And more importantly, I think it will make you more aware that, okay, so we have one less kidney. We have to make sure we go to the doctor every year. We have regular checkups, because you can identify disease early on with regular screening.
Yeah, and the only thing that I'm restricted from now
Mhm.
as a donor is NSAIDs. So they tell
Right.
me, don't take Aleve, don't take Motrin.
Right.
But I can take Tylenol.
Exactly,
So if
yeah.
I need to,
Exactly,
but that was the only restriction. I no longer have to
So
take
no
anything.
more Advil,
No more Advil.
right.
yeah.
Ibuprofen.
Right.
Right. So another one that comes up that's similar, maybe Dr. Brontes can answer this, is for a woman who's in the childbearing years, that there might be complications, or you can't have children after donating a kidney, and so that's not true. But there are some things that are true about that. Maybe you could share.
No, it's interesting what you just said, Patrick. When I go to national meetings and we attend talks about living donation or statistics about living donation, in the U.S., most living donors are women. Comparatively, we're behind, guys.
They're the brave ones.
Yeah, no, they are the more donors. So there is a slightly higher risk, for a woman, for example, who want to donate below 40 years old, between 20 to 40 years old, and they want to have another kid after donation. There's a risk of a higher hypertension, high blood pressure during pregnancy. There could be a higher risk of protein in the urine, with pregnancy. We call that sometimes preeclampsia or eclampsia. So there is a higher risk for that. But again, donating with some medical care after donation is very important. If you become pregnant after donation, it's important to have your checkup, regularly with your physicians.
Right. Good. Another one that was asked of me, I was sharing my story once with a group of people, and someone said, "Well, what is your blood type?" And I immediately jumped into an answer of, it doesn't have to be a match. And I should have just said, "Oh yeah, I am B positive," but that doesn't matter because you don't have to be a perfect match. And so we talked about that a little. There's all sorts of programs like you could do a paired donation or the voucher program, and as long as you're healthy enough to donate a kidney, you can donate, and then the person you want to receive a kidney can end up getting a prioritized either a voucher or something to get a kidney from someone else. This friend that donated a kidney from Wisconsin, his friend that needed a kidney got a kidney 2 months later from someone else that was a better match for him. So the biggest thing is you have to be healthy enough to donate. You don't need to be the perfect blood type or the perfect match. but you just need to be healthy enough. But that's a very common question that comes up. How about others? There's other common myths.
Well, one is that people will profit on your organ donation.
Yeah, right.
And I know all the testing that was done on me was paid for by the National Kidney Foundation. And it's my understanding that my recipient's insurance is the one that paid for hers. But I also understand that if you go into the ER, you know, or if you're in a car accident, whatever, the doctors can't even ask if you're on a donor registration unless unless they know that they can't save you. Is that true? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I have another question here. Donating a kidney is a dangerous procedure. You know, everything in life has risks. You know, driving a car has risks. You know, and the donation risk is the surgery risk is actually quite minimal. It's like it's 3 out of 10,000. The risk of dying is 0.03%. You know, so it is very, very low. And the complication that you can say, you can divide as a, you know, right after donation or with donation, and then the long-term complication. You know, the short-term complications are going to be pain, nausea, perhaps with some of the painkillers, and yes, the difficulty of recovering from a surgery. Those will be the immediate risk. You know, and then the long-term risk is going to be, as I mentioned before, you're going to lose 30% of kidney function. That will increase the risk of hypertension, perhaps, you know, and that will increase the risk of a little bit of protein in the urine. But again, with regular medical care, those things can be taken care of.
Right.
Yes.
When sharing our story, do we need to put our personal contact information for anyone who may be interested in donating to contact the recipient? Or what information do you advise we put when we're putting our story out there?
That's a really good question. It's always good to, you know, I mean, if you're sharing your story verbally and personally, you know, you can give them your phone number. I know if I shared it with someone here in Albuquerque, and they wanted to find out more, I would send them to the Living Donor Coordinator at the transplant center I was working with. And both UNM and Press have a Living Donor Coordinator. And that person can answer all their questions. Plus, if they want to get started with the process, they can get them started. Another way is through the National Kidney Registry. If you're working with a transplant center that uses them, they can go through the registry, and the registry will ultimately connect them with that same person. But it's good to get them connected to the Living Donor Coordinator at the hospital that you're listed at. I hope that answered the question. There's another common myth that you know, we kind of touched on, Valerie did, and that the donor is going to have to pay all these out-of-pocket expenses, or they're going to have to pay for the surgery. And not everyone works for Sandia. And you know, maybe there's someone that doesn't have a job or works for some other place that maybe isn't as generous. How would we answer that? I know you have some info.
Right. Again, the National Kidney Registry, if you're registered with them, they will help you with the expenses that you have to pay out of pocket. You know, I get surveys all the time asking if I've lost my health insurance, you know, if I'm feeling any kind of discrimination, anything like that. They're willing to help you with that. You know, they do have a home blood draw program that, you know, they'll come to your house and they'll help you test.
Wow.
You know, yeah. So they're really, it's a really great program, and they will do anything they can to help find a match.
Plus all the medical cost of all the tests and surgery and everything is covered by the recipient's insurance.
So, so my testing was paid for by the National Kidney registry.
Wow, nice.
Right.
Yeah.
They also have a wage loss portion also. So if you do lose
Yeah.
wages, you can file a claim for
Right.
reimbursement. But yeah, so and it's my understanding that the recipient's insurance is the one that paid for their operation.
Right,
Operation.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but it was nothing out of pocket. I mean,
Only your time.
only my time.
One kid.
Yeah, for one kid. I did get a T-shirt.
You get a
T-shirt. Well, another one is I am too old to donate, and we also kind of touched on that. And I had a friend that was 71, and he wanted to help. And so I called my living donor coordinator, and she said every transplant center has different criteria, but she said their cutoff was 70. So he was not able to do it. But I have heard of through Ned Brooks' organization that there was a man that was 75 that donated a kidney. So, you know, I think people that are even in their 50s ask, well, I'm too old, aren't I? And that's not true. It's good to ask and find out for sure. But I think the cutoff's up around 70 somewhere. But every center is a little bit different.
Yeah, and I've had people ask, well, I had cancer, I had chemo,
Right.
you know, and from my understanding, it's just depending on how healthy you are right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, if you have a chronic illness that is going to impact the donor's survival, you know, kidney transplant centers are much more cautious, you know, and they outweigh the risks and benefits. But in general, as a transplant nephrologist, you know, when I have to evaluate a living kidney donor who is, for example, 30 years old or 25 years old, and I have a kidney donor candidate who is 62 years old, you know, I'm more apprehensive, you know, with a 25-year-old because I cannot foresee what's going to happen in 15, 20, 30, 40 years old because they have a long lifespan and diseases can happen as they get older, you know, so it's much more difficult to predict as a physician. Whereas when you're seeing a donor in the 60s, they have, you know, more than half life already, you know, and they haven't gotten diabetes, they haven't gotten, you know, a chronic illness that can be impairing their lifestyle. So we use different tools to assess the risk, you know, in different age group.
Right, right. Another common one is my religion prevents me from being a donor. And everything I have heard is that most major religions of the world consider it a generous servant-like gift that you would give to another person. It's really and so there might be some, you know, but all the major ones support living donor donation, living donor organ donation. So, but the question comes up.
So, Valerie, when you were doing this process again, you know, and when you were meeting different parts of the team, you know, and because you saw different providers, you know, and so how was your experience while you were navigating the whole process as a donor? Did you feel that you were rushing to the process? Did you feel that your thoughts were respected? So share your story.
Oh, absolutely. They were very helpful, you know, and like I said, every step of the way, it's like, are you sure you want to do this? Have you thought this through? You know, like I said, even to that morning before the surgery, it was like, are you sure you want to do this?
Wow.
You know, no, everybody was, you know, very patient, answered all my questions. Yeah, I didn't feel pressured or rushed at all by anyone. You know.
How long did the process take you?
Let's see. So I started testing in June, and we were going to schedule in November. Then it got pushed back to months. So, you know, 5 months, 6 months. It was
5 months.
Yeah, right.
But
So they give
5
you-
or 6 months for them to tell you you're cleared
You're
to
clear.
be a
Yes,
donor?
from when I started testing our first went to, I had mine at press. So the
Mhm.
first meeting I had at press to the time that we actually did it, right? And so I had lots of time to think. Like I said, I met with the psychologist, the whole bit. And yeah, I had plenty of time to prepare. Um,
So you mentioned earlier that some of actually you got some comments from the family.
right.
So tell us more about it. Did you feel that the family was very discouraging because just a lack of knowledge, or you had more worry? What were the worries?
Yeah, my father was the most worried,
Uh-huh.
and I think it was just like you said, a lack of knowledge.
Okay.
He didn't really understand the process of what could happen.
Mhm.
Everybody else pretty much respected my wishes and
Mhm.
understood. We did speak about it, and like I said, some of the myths were resolved, and they knew that once I set my mind to it, I was going to do it.
True.
But yeah, once he understood that I could live with one kidney, and other than any other major surgery, it
Sure,
wasn't.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now my only mission is to help convince somebody else to think about it.
Wow.
So that's why I'm here.
Wow.
That's what I want to do next, is to maybe prod someone else to consider
Well,
doing it.
there's a lot of need. There's a lot of
Yes,
need.
there is.
We have 3,700 plus people on dialysis in New Mexico, and only 10% of them are in the wait list.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
it's a huge need, huge need. So I think to wrap up things here, what would be our final messages here? Maybe perhaps we can start with Patrick and just.
That there are people out there that are willing to donate. That people like Valerie, people like my donor, and I know I would sometimes talk to 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 people before someone says, "Hey, I can help. What do I have to do? Do I need to take a blood test?" So there's people out there. So we should be encouraged by that, but it's not something for everybody. So you may have to tell your story a number of times. So there's people out there, and the best way to let them know of this need is to share your story and ask your friends and family to share that story too. And matter of fact, sometimes they can do it better than we can. And then there's a bunch of myths, and people will probably ask you some of these different myths. Am I too old? Am I not the right blood type? It's just really dangerous. So I would just encourage you to be ready to answer those questions. You can just Google, common myths to being a living donor, and you'll get some nice lists from the National Kidney Registry, the National Kidney Donor Organization. There's a lot of places out there that'll give you the facts on these different questions, and so it's good to be ready to answer those questions.
I remember Pat a few years back when you were in dialysis. The National Kidney Foundation, the New Mexico Kidney Foundation does some activities in the community, and Pat helps to organize the pickleball tournament.
Yeah.
And as part of pickleball, and Pat will come and share his story, and with a bunch of pickleball players, and that was amazing to see your perseverance.
Right.
Perseverance, and to share your story, and that was I learned a lot from your case. But for my end, for all the patients who are out there, and remember, living kidney donation is the way to go if patients have kidney failure on dialysis or have advanced kidney disease, and they are looking to get into a transplant or dialysis. The living kidney donation for the donors is considered a safe procedure. There are policies, procedures in place that every transplant center follows, and is considered a safe procedure, and the long-term risks are minimal. But we do suggest that living donors do see a physician every year to have the regular checkup, just to ensure everything is going correctly. And finally, the recovery period for the recipient is much much faster, less complications, more predictability for what's going to happen after the transplant. So all these things are positive aspects that need to be taken into account.
I'd just like to mention that I would be willing to speak with anyone who's considering it. Talk a little more about, after the procedure, how to set up for that, what you need.
Yeah.
Wear something really loose to the hospital. You're very bloated afterwards. Yeah. Yeah. So anyone who wants to reach me, I guess they can call the New Mexico Kidney Foundation.
Yeah.
And they can get a hold of me, and I'm willing to talk to you.
Nice.
That's great. That's a great thought. Perhaps we should talk to the organizing the New Mexico Kidney Foundation, an area where people from New Mexico can share their story.
Oh yeah.
In that platform.
Yeah.
We can have a little part in the website where people can share their story and have the contact information there. So then they can just maybe reach out a donor there.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Any questions? Any more questions, Londa?
No.
Very good. I think we're wrapping up here for today's episode, and we want to thank you very much for attending today, and we hope to repeat a similar episode maybe in 3 to 4 months from now. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you.